All right, all right. Greetings, everyone. Welcome to Dorsey's Resource. First, before we get started, this video is going to be for informational, educational purposes. Please keep in mind everyone's individual circumstance or situation may be different. It's up to every individual competent person to please do his or her own homework and research into the matter being discussed. This information is not to be construed as legal advice. In the event you feel you need to seek a competent professional, it is encouraged that you do so at one's own leisure. Dorsey's Resource Channel is not liable or responsible for any misuse of this information. These are simply my opinions. Everyone is responsible for their own affairs. All rights are reserved. Greetings, everyone. Welcome. The topic of this video is going to be redemption education is unconventional with many procedures. Greetings to you, Chris Smith. Welcome. Peace to you. Appreciate you for joining. So this is going to be kind of like a free flow topic, and just to let you all know that are here, this is also going to be open Q&A because I was contemplating on what the topic would be. So if you have any questions, feel free to chime in. I just kind of want to have a free flow discussion as well, kind of discuss, but to keep it on the topic so far, the reason I'm presenting this topic, a lot of newbies that I meet that study this redemption education, I don't call it sovereign citizen. I've never referred to that. That's an umbrella term that's used to discredit the legitimate side of information when people check into. I'm not saying that you have scams and things that are frauds out there, con artists, but that doesn't exemplify everyone, by the way. When there's individuals you all know out there that get accused, I've never, on the record so far, I've never ever charged anyone for this information. I've helped out people that study this type of information. I've sent documents for free. That's solidified on the record. Now, down the road, I have discussed possibly starting a Patreon account and some other things, and that would be just simply for individuals that would like to donate in regards to my time. I've done a lot of time and research, and everyone I've gotten a lot of requests from people in the past that want to talk to me personally. I can't do that for everyone because there's just so many people and there's only so many hours in the day. As I'm transparent with you all, I think it's important to have checks and balances, but I want you all to know the truth. So you guys see the real side of me. I'm not hiding behind a fake account. I give my real name, normally at the end of my videos lately. It's part of having checks and balances, providing credibility. To let you guys know I'm reputable, but I felt I started this YouTube vlog to provide insight, kind of like Mythbusters, like kind of what they do. But this information is unconventional in regards to it's on a level of like college universities. Like there's not really steps 1 through 3 or 1 through 5, A through Z. In a way it is, but in some instances it's not. Some procedures or processes can be mixed up. You have, for example, in the past dealing with this type of information, as many of you all know, secured party creditor process, abbreviation SPC. You have the usufruct remedy process. That's with the spell with the usufruct, and that's an actual term that deals with the Libra code. I don't remember too much about that, but dealing with safe harbor, tied in kind of with admiralty, has some similarities to the SPC process. That stands for secured party creditor. You have other various processes too. I remember a process many years ago was called cancellatory process that dealt with the contracts. Another way is different ways to skin a cat. Just like if you played sports or you're familiar with, there's different ways to go about doing things and trying to obtain remedy. So I just wanted to kind of touch on that. I'm going to acknowledge you guys in the chat in a little bit, those of you all who are joining, so I don't get that far behind, by the way. But I just kind of wanted to go over that this redemption education is like unconventional collegiate level. It's like an unconventional university. There's different classes, there's different processes to study different types of information. And I want to say people who are more advanced or more proficient in this type of information generally have a background in the legal profession. I've done very in-depth research. I am college educated, even though I only made it as far as to getting my associate's degree in business administration, self-directed management at the university I went to at the time, called Davenport University, which was owned by a larger entity that purchased Detroit College of Business, the campus that I originally studied from when I transferred from DeVry Institute of Technology from Columbus, Ohio, back to Detroit back in 1999. It was called Detroit College of Business, and they were later purchased by Davenport University, which I believe was based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. They had multiple campuses, and I was at the Dearborn campus at the time on Open Boulevard, that's in Michigan, which is no longer there. They sold that campus, that school, to another group, and they moved that particular campus to Livonia, from what I understand, which I tell a friend of mine, you can see their logo off the freeway. Just to kind of go over my background, a little bit of my credentials. At the time at that campus, I worked for a college instructor. I also worked in a file room. I was also a groundskeeper. I was a groundskeeper first. I also worked in the bookstore. So I saw how the infrastructure of the school was ran. I saw when the board of trustees would come up to the school. I knew the dean, a lot of the people, because I assisted delivering mail when I worked in building and grounds. I did clerical administrative work as a work study administrative assistant. So I got a understanding dealing with things that I think is related to the county, how they have records, the county records of different citizens and things of that sort, where I've drawn comparisons. I also work and was considered a low-level, lowest form of law enforcement currently in the security industry, and that has enabled me to talk to former military people, ask them questions privately without saying their names. One guy, individual, some years ago, used to work for the company that I'm with. He was also a former U.S. Marine. He was also a paramedic at the time. He was studying, from what I understand, which I didn't know, to get his level 3. I think he was already basic paramedic, but at a higher level. So I asked some questions about the lean database. By the way, privately, that's what the law enforcement use when they look up, before they pull people over. And there's some things related to this redemption education. Contrary to popular belief, there were those out there who tell you that this information is not real, that it's fake. And I want to tell you, there is a legitimate side that is credible, by the way. Don't believe what some of these gatekeepers, minions, underlinks, and shills on YouTube are trying to convince you of. And obviously, YouTube would not be censoring certain channels and just all of a sudden just shutting people's channels down if there was individuals not telling truth. Because YouTube didn't used to be like that. YouTube was also bought out, purchased by a higher level corporation, by the way. So there's many content creators I'm aware of that have already moved to other web hosting platforms, by the way. And I encourage you guys to do the same. Let's find out, share information. You guys are welcome to chime in. This is Q&A as well. I'm going to get to the chat to acknowledge you guys, by the way, so just stand by. But I just want to kind of go over that there are those out there who will tell you that this information is sovereign citizen ideology. I'd never claim to be that term. I want to tell you that is an umbrella term that is used to discredit people, to make them look like they're conspiracy theorists, to make them look like they're crazy, etc. And I want to tell you, I'm a perfectly sane individual. I had a couple relatives who were actually diagnosed with mental disorders. I found out one I didn't know in particular. The other relative I actually witnessed firsthand, by the way, and they take medications and stuff. So I don't do none of that over here. You're getting, just because I talk about things that may not seem in the normal perspective, does not mean that I'm a conspiracy theorist, or that I flew over the cuckoo's nest, or that does not legitimize that this stuff that I talk about is an urban legend. This is not fairy tales. I talk about real things. I have actual notes. I have documents to validate, to prove. So if individuals try to even get me in trouble with law enforcement, I love the Leos, by the way, just on the record, and certain individuals, and they will be getting a plethora of information. I actually already spoke to a private investigator, not only a guy I used to work with some years ago. I won't say his name, of course, to protect his identity. I only mention names to, for example, when I do, that's to validate certain types of research that I've done. Like when I mentioned Barton Butts, he was already public. He was an investigative journalist many years ago when you used to be able to pull this information up online for free and download documents before that site Scribs took it and makes you pay like a membership fee just to get those same documents that used to be free online. By the way, just some of you guys that are newbies don't know that. I've been studying this information since 2004. So my experience is, I have a lot more experience than that particular gatekeeper out there that spews a lot of lies, that wants you to believe that her facts matter, Venus Trinity. I won't say because that's what that name breaks down, that pseudonym name that she's using, by the way. And that's who I'm always talking about. I'm referring to that racist person, very deeply racist, I think, in my opinion, does not like black people, attacks a lot of different groups, but tries to lump everybody in one box. That's like, she's stereotyping, by the way. Very stereotypical people. They try to, that's like saying, you know, all black people like fried chicken. Things, just using this as an example. She's racist, that gatekeeper over there. That's what I mean. She puts everybody and calls them a sovereign citizen, by the way. And like I said, to reiterate, I do not go by that term. This information deals with actually becoming a private citizen, and there's contracts that you can voluntarily not participate in. There is no laws forcing you, by the way, to participate in certain contracts unless you have certain obligations, which you would be in a form of a legal binding contract. It could be with your employer, or like when people sign non-disclosure agreements for movies, or even I found out they use actors for video games, voice actors. They use studios. So if you have contractual obligations, that's a form of a contract. And I told you guys, for example, look up the various definition of contracts. There's different types of contracts. That's why third-party debt collectors, when they call you and say this is an attempt to collect a debt, any information obtained will be used for that purpose unless you dispute the validity of this debt. Notice key word, they say dispute the validity. You have up until a certain time period. They're giving you, if you study real closely, you have your third eye and you're paying attention, that you can, there's ways, without going into all the details. I did give a disclaimer, so understand this is not legal advice. But however, I'm basing my opinions off of credible research from my experience and things I've thoroughly vetted and investigated myself, by the way. So I just wanted to provide clarification that I talk about the legitimate side of the redemption education, and it is real. There are processes that have worked. But I do want to say, caution you, it is unconventional with what a lot of people don't understand on the level of a collegiate university, like if you're studying for your master's or PhD. By the way, I went over this SPC process that stands for secured party creditor. You had the usufruct process, and you had other various processes that came down the line without mentioning, saying certain names, by the way, just to give you guys a heads up. Now, I'm going to get in the chat before I get back into the topic, by the way, just to acknowledge you guys. So thank you for joining, by the way. If you are currently watching, I appreciate your time, and greetings to you. Let me scroll up. Okay, we have Tori Benson Mahuka says aloha, sending you blessings. Thank you Tony Benson Mahuka, appreciate you. Money Boy Films in the building. What's up, D? What's up, family? I have Patricia Dixon in the building. Greetings to you. Big shout out to you, Patricia. Good evening, everyone. Camilla Barnes says good evening. Darren Jackson says, I appreciate the education. I appreciate you. Thank you for joining. Terry McLaughlin says, hey, Dorsey, appreciate you. Hey, how you doing, Terry? Thank you for joining. Tony says, your knowledge is amazing and a blessing to all of us. I appreciate all you offer here. Thank you so much. Appreciate you, by the way, for confirming. And you guys don't mind, let's get these thumbs up. And you're welcome, always welcome to comment after the video. Even if I don't respond, I can at least give you a love emoji, because sometimes it takes me time to answer those questions. But you always welcome to respond, to ask questions, or leave a comment on my Facebook. If all you want to do is just give a shout out or confirm that you see the evidence behind what I'm going over, that, you know, you have a kindred spirit. You say, hey, you know, Dorsey has a point. I agree with that. You know, that's fine. I appreciate that, because it shows evidence to the haters out there and the trolls that what I'm going over is credible, it's factual, that real facts matter, and I'm going over real facts. You don't have no one hiding behind a fake account. You're seeing a real person, by the way. Just keep that in mind. We have Mary Saunders says, good evening. Good evening, Mary. Thank you for joining. Fox Chick says 2017 says, greetings, Dorsey. Greetings to you. Money Boy says hi to everyone in the chat. Terry says, what up, Money? Fox Chick says, greetings to everyone. Hello, Fox. Terry says, hello. Okay, Mary. Let me scroll down some more. I appreciate all of your information, sir. Thank you, Mary. Appreciate you for acknowledging. Thank you for that warm compliment. Sonia Johnson says, love your information. I appreciate you, Sonia. Thank you for joining, by the way. So, and finish kind of going over the topic to reiterate. I was going to go over like people who have an advantage, as I was discussing earlier, that study this type of redemption education, a lot of times have a legal background or maybe a background in business, where I've noticed people that are successful, like pertaining to the private banking trust. There's separate classes and webinars on how to set up a trust. One that's non-statutory. We're talking about that's not within the regular jurisdiction. There will be a certain way that you will operate. Because remember, you have something called commingling. You don't want to commingle. That's mixing public and private, and you want to learn to keep that separate. I know Yusuf El, appreciate his work that he's doing. By the way, he does have a YouTube channel. From what I understand, he should still be up the last time I've checked. He's gone over that information, does an excellent job, even discussing SPC. And there's others out there. And I want to say there was one channel I got a word from someone I talked to who mentioned they spoke to the previous video that I have done. I want to make a correction. That channel was called Ross. That was the name. And I believe the name of the guy in the video, he mentioned his real name. I'll just say the first part. I guess his real government name, the first name was Eugene, by the way. And unfortunately, I heard his whole channel was deleted. If any of you all out there know Eugene, tell him to get with me. I will share if he comes back on YouTube or decides to come back. I would even recommend going on other platforms. But I was told that his information is backed up, that a friend or someone who was a listener or watches his channel. And I encourage you guys to do the same thing. It just reminded me, if you fear that my channel could go down one day, because there's a gatekeeper out here, and I kind of mentioned her earlier. She's working with other people too, by the way. It just isn't her, but there's mean-spirited people who are evil, very, very wicked, that don't want this type of information being put out there, the legitimate side. Because I had a subscriber, by the way, this is a true story, and her name, she uses, and I understand anonymity. I do respect that. But at the same time, this particular subscriber who contacted me told me she tried to reach out to this individual, and she did. This gatekeeper that I mentioned quite a bit, Virgo Triad, was named Venus Trinity. The other name, you guys hear me refer to Venus Trinity, you know what I'm talking about. She said she had evidence that the discharges A for V worked. And she was in communication with Venus Trinity, and she said that when she was going to present the information, Virgo, who blocked her out. So that shows you that even the legitimate side for processes that work, that she just wants to dismiss everything as being a scam. But I also say to people, too, that if she wants you to be trustworthy of the public sector, the statutory side of the system, and that is a legal term, by the way. Some of you all can read between the line. You have to ask the question, why doesn't she cover when Wells Fargo Bank used people's social security numbers without their permission and opened up accounts and caused very egregious crimes? Why didn't she mention Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, a harp on them, did way more damage than so-called sovereign citizens with these data breaches, and many corporations? Remember when Best Buy was in the news one year? Target was in the news. How are these big corporations, by the way, having these big data breaches? Just something to think about. What entity hires a lot of these type of people who happen to have the time to do this? Now, many of us are busy with our everyday lives. I can tell you, I don't have the time. That's just too much effort or the level of education. But you guys know what I mean. What entity has the money to hire people to do this? Or do you think it's a coincidence that these major corporations keep having these data breaches, by the way? So that leads me to something else. Why doesn't this particular gatekeeper, she will have you believe that there's a sovereign citizen lurking around every store corner waiting to rob you, take your money, con you, etc. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have a side to this type of information. That I tell everyone, make an assessment, evaluate before you donate to someone or give someone money. That's why I give a disclaimer. Everyone is responsible. We all are adults in the matter. We're not children. Once you reach 18, the age of majority, you have the ability, the conscience to evaluate. So you have to even understand if you're taking a risk. If you do give someone money and expect something in return, I would thoroughly research, investigate this information as much as possible. That's where I come into play to show you guys. There was also an event I attended some years ago, which I have audios from. Many of you all that I know personally, privately, have this same information, and some of it was even still online that you can get. That's why I recommended even listening to David Clarence, going back listening to his work that he did, just his audios that are still online, by the way. And this is no attack on anyone, just go back and listen to his audios. He talks about a plethora of other things, but he dealt with talking about the private sector and individuals that he met, who my friend refers to as the shadow people. David Clarence had some real good information, but I want to address how also these gatekeepers, minions, don't mention, they try to point the finger or just blame one side and say it's just the police is bad, but they don't go into the judicial system or legal system either. How I'm not saying everyone, but certain individuals within the courthouses and government institutions are committing fraud when they abuse their authority. And this doesn't get addressed. Like here in Michigan, in Detroit, if you want to file a complaint, for example, against an attorney, you have something called the Attorney Grievance Commission. Now, many of you all who are in different states, you can look up how to file a complaint if you have to, just like you can against a police officer, you can against a lawyer. It's called an Attorney Grievance Commission. You also have something called the Judicial Tenure Commission or whatever. That's for like judges. So I was listening to this particular channel, YouTube channel, that got shut down, and the guy, his name was M. Ross. If you guys know him, tell him to contact me. I'll share, send you guys to his video if he's able to come back up on YouTube. I appreciate the brother. He was going more in depth than I was. I had just discovered him, by the way, his work. And kudos to him. He did a video that I saw with the lady named Rochelle that I took notes from, based out of, I believe, Syracuse, New York, she mentioned. And she went over how when you do your complaints, you want to file them with the IRS, for example, when there's agencies, government corporations, agencies that have wronged you, so the IRS can have oversight. Because the concept is that many of these corporations, courthouses are banking in a fraudulent way where they're committing fraud because the IRS is not getting their cut. See, they want you, for example, to follow the taxes, to be, a good slave, a good citizen, a 1040 employee. But see, the difference is they're corporations, and then even the individuals representing those entities, they're statutory, which means all corporations are supposed to follow public law. They're supposed to be under a certain type of law and things. And many of these entities are individuals that take on titles of nobility. Now, I'm not saying all cases. You have some good ones out there. But she said, for example, when these entities collect cash from you or they don't give you a receipt, this allows these government courthouses, even the Secretary of State, to not have a paper trail, because electronic records can be audited. Can be altered. And by the way, that's why when you see the FBI come in for these corruption cases of misconduct, when they have these audits, it's because a lot of this stuff has been going on. But I learned this from a redemption aspect when there was people going into court fighting for their rights, going under pro se, proper persona, trying to, defend themselves. They were being railroaded by these gatekeepers within the courthouses, which easily came in the form of lawyers and judges. By the way, this isn't talked about. And they are more required, since they're operating in the public under the statutory side. They are even more responsible for providing transparency and accountability, because there's supposed to be checks and balances to keep them from abusing their authority on average everyday U.S. citizens. And a friend of mine pointed out, why doesn't this gatekeeper also touch on how the IRS has targeted and audited innocent people? well, upstanding citizens, people who try to obey the system and be obedient. And they've had these data breaches. They've caused a lot of damage, by the way, more so than this gatekeeper who wants to point the finger and says the sovereign citizens, they're causing the trouble, you know, because they want to steer you over here, say, don't look into that. We don't want you becoming free. We want to keep you dumbed down and brainwashed and programmed. What do they call television program? What are they programming? Your mind. Like a computer program, they want to program you. They want to control the narrative. They don't want you to think outside the box. Think for yourself. This is not conspiracy theory. This is facts that I'm going over. People can evaluate and see that I'm going over real facts. I'm going over information you can research, look up. That's why I do these vlog videos. I'm going to work on some screen capture videos down the road too for you guys to have. That's why I went over those documentaries, for example, you can watch on YouTube for free, such as Monopoly Men, Money Masters, The Secret of Oz by Bill Steele, The College Conspiracy, that deals with the hustle behind these private or for-profit college universities, by the way. Scientists Are Under Attack, that deals with our food agriculture, with a particular company, because what these documentaries will do is allow me not to have to say the name of the company for trademark or copyright infringement, but refer you to the documentary. It will go over that information, the name of this particular company that had been poisoning crops around the world, and some of the farmers had stopped allowing this particular company to come in and take seeds from them because it was altering their livestock and their crops and things. By the way, these documentaries provide the education behind that. That's why I keep going over them, because this is information is very important. It's tied in with this other stuff, redemption stuff, with the banking system, with the Illuminati, with the particular family whose name I'm not going to say, but it's in those books that I've gone over without me ever having to say that particular name. By the way, these documentaries, check out Endgame by Alex Jones. He produced some years ago. It has like a green logo. I believe you can still watch that for free on YouTube. It is still on YouTube, that documentary, by the way. And it deals with the Bilderberg group. It's a high-level secret society. That's real. It's connected to the Davos group. That's like the daylight version of the Bilderberg. But Alex Jones and other investigative journalists from other parts of the world. There's one journalist named Daniel Estelin. He's based over in Europe or Spain. There was other journalists even from Canada in different parts of the world that covered this. See, they want to label him a conspiracy theorist because they don't want you waking up to the truth. They want to brainwash us and keep us dumbed down and programs, and so they can control the narrative. You see? So that's why I still watch his work. Doesn't mean you have to co-sign or agree with everything this person says or does. But when I watch all sorts of news, because I want to see what lies they're up to, or see how they're trying to program people. So I still watch CNN or MSNBC or whatever, because I want to see what they're up to. You know, that's what a good researcher does. You watch everybody, by the way, to see, you know, who's really telling the truth, and evaluate, make an assessment. And then you'll start to see who's really telling the truth. And I've been consistent throughout the years. This is what makes my skill set, my intelligence level much greater. I'm not trying to brag, but it allows me to have truly a third eye. A lot of people in the Black conscious community or think, you know, that they're more spiritual than other people. But, you know, when somebody's putting in the work and they're doing the research and truly investigating, you know, and I'm going over this information and other people are hiding and not showing their face. But when you get into a political discussion, a political debate, they can't hold no weight, you know, compared to, you know, the information. I'm just saying, you know, so I've tested, vetted this information, investigated it. I've known about this stuff for years, by the way. So, you know, I'm a veteran by now. That means I have experience in knowing who's telling the truth to evaluate. Also, keep in mind, when you hire an attorney or public defender or defense counsel, they have the ability to use your signature against you behind your back. By the way, when you sign documents where you think that in many cases they'll pretend to be your friend, but behind the scenes, once they've gotten your acquiescence, your signature, they can monetize certain documents and things and do things and even alter them, because, you know, they use things electronically and securitize it on the stock market. Like, years ago, the banking institutions used to send people's personal checks back. I had an elder and some other people confirm this not only some years ago, but even recently. He stated, yeah, the banks used to send their personal checks back. You know what they do now, since things are moving digitally, that doesn't mean that they didn't still stop putting it on the stock market. They turn those into derivatives in the derivatives market. They securitize it. Some of y'all may know, similar to monetization, that's where it gets into fractional reserve banking. There's a book called Modern Money Mechanics. If you can still look it up, you can still find it for free online. Look up Modern Money Mechanics. I took a Shelf Corporation class many years ago from an actual banker from Chase Bank. It was a private class that he went over. And they went over this book. They said it's a must-have called Modern Money Mechanics. It explains how banks can loan up to 90% of your funds that you have on deposit. They can create the funds out of thin air digitally, because no one asks, where does the money come from? That's why when I did the screen capture video a while back, I asked you guys to look up, and I showed you guys the National Debt Clock. Go to nationaldebtclock.org, and it'll list the debt per citizen. Because this gatekeeper wants you to believe that the United States is not a federal corporation, which I've proven pursuant to, in reference to Title 28 of the United States Code, Section 3002, subsection 15, section look up A, B, and C in the sub section of that category. Title 28, Section 3002. The United States is a federal corporation, and presidents and stuff and different officers, that's why they call officers, they hold different positions. By the way, they act as trustees on behalf of that corporation, by the way. Just something to keep about. I'm just going over some basic trust law, basic things that you guys can look up to connect the dots. So going back to the legal system, so these public officials, gatekeepers, public defenders, counsels, lawyers, judges, the courts, when they make a claim against you on the private side, they get $2 to $10 million per charge. That's part of fractionalization. Now, to finish with the banking system, Modern Money Mechanics teaches about this, where the banks can loan up to 90% of what you have on deposit. So say if you have $10,000, they can loan up to $90,000 per $10,000. So that's per everyone that has an account, everyone who's a customer, especially if you're doing business a certain way. There's truth behind, I don't have the ability to go over it in this video, and some of it is very sensitive between U.S. citizen and national. But some of us are doing business at a certain status, and they're taking advantage of that too, by the way. So what these public officials do sometimes, and even lawyers and counsels and judges, they go, when they ask you for your social security number, and you give them that information, and you may have already signed through your signature, acquiescence, they can cash in on that account. They can access the private side, because remember, corporations can act as intermediaries. That social is a Q-SIP attached to your birth certificate, your also known as your bond certificate, which acts as a registered security. Despite individuals telling you it's not a registered security, it is a form of a securities instrument. That's why the Social Security card called Social Security. Look up the Securities Act of 1933. By the way, it's not a coincidence. That was also the year around HJR 192, House Joint Resolution 192, Public Law 73-10, codified also in the statutes at large, Statute 4848, Statute 112. Look up Statute of the United States Codes, and this is powerful for lawyers. The statutes at large, this backs up HJR 192, because some people try to say it's repealed, but this particular gatekeeper who hides behind, doesn't ever show their real face, and uses a pseudonym name, tells you that HJR House Joint Resolution 192 is not real. That is incorrect. You can get certified copies from the Library of Congress, if they still allow it thus far. I already have a copy. I know people, I've heard some years ago, I even have a copy someone sent to me, a copy of a copy they emailed. You also have the National Archives, where you can get the Moroccan Treaty of Peace and Friendship. The reason I know this, I have it. I went there some years ago with some other people. They keep records on these things. This is a fact. But this gatekeeper, to show you this minion, this deep state shield, lies. They're a liar. And I'm telling you truth. So I'm giving you real facts. Real facts matter. That's what Dorsey's Resource is here for. I'm going to be your resource. Go over, even though I gave a disclaimer, I'm going over factual information, by the way. Just something to think about. You know, who's telling the truth? You know, why does this other person want to steer you in the wrong direction and lie to you? Do they have your back? Somebody that's constantly lying, making up stuff, telling a fable, fibs, you know, and they don't even show a real face? Just something to keep in mind, by the way. I'm going to see what other information I can go over. You guys are also welcome to ask questions or chime in if you have any thoughts before I shut things down. By the way, also, I see I'm at 35 minutes already, by the way. So let me see what else I can cover before I shut this video down. This is open Q&A, guys, so you are welcome to ask questions before I shut things down, or if you have a comment, something you want to address. This now is the best time to catch me. Don't be afraid if you have a question to ask me. I'll do my level best to answer the question. M. Ross, his whole channel, by the way, was shut down. So if you guys know him, if he's out there, let him know Dorsey's Resource appreciated his work, supported him. Kudos to him. He had a channel similar to mine. He was sharing, teaching this information, dealing with redemption, the legitimate side. He was showing actual documents, how to fill them out, some things I would have liked to go over. I just hadn't got to that level yet. And he was doing excellent work. And he was shut down all of a sudden. So you have to ask the question, why is it YouTube, you know, colluding? And who got his channel shut down, by the way? Because I didn't see anything where he was violating any, I didn't see him use any profanity. You know, his channel was like PG, if not PG-13. You have people who have like rated R stuff. Their channels are still up, by the way. So that's something to think about. But, you know, reading between the lines, these gatekeepers, they want to keep people dumbed down, these shields. This got to be a reason. But tell them to contact me. My email, this is specifically for M. Ross, the channel that was shut down. I've never met him before, but contact me at Dorsey's Resource 2017 at gmail.com. That's specifically for this YouTube channel, for serious inquiries only for this channel. I tell people, don't leave me my number. There's people I do know already, even some subscribers I've talked to personally, by the way. But other than that, I can't do this for everyone. I don't have the platform for this. I already gave a call some years ago to try to get assistance, and you know, I didn't get enough assistance at the time, but I may, you know, down the road. But this is for M. Ross Eugene. He can reach me at Dorsey's Resource. That's together as one word, like I spell it, 2017 at gmail.com. That's specifically for him, by the way. But if he comes back up on YouTube, because I heard someone told me that his videos were backed up. I like that information. I was learning myself, by the way, because many of us are at different levels. And he went and showed the templates, was doing an excellent job. And this just shows, I think, that the reason his channel was shut down, in my opinion, there's sources out there, very wicked people who don't want people gaining access to their freedom, learning this information. This is very mean-spirited, by the way. And I think, in my opinion, I think it's some gatekeepers, and one in particular who's behind it. Because I actually wouldn't have discovered this channel if I wasn't going over and peeking over to her channel to see what lies she was spewing or what she was up to. So big shout out to M. Ross and the work he was doing over there, by the way. But I can confirm you're getting a real person. His information was legitimate. But keep in mind, this redemption education is like unconventional. There's different processes, different procedures. This is also why I give a disclaimer. We all are adults. So when if you decide to study this type of information, if you feel that this is for you, you have to go on this with the understanding that the risk involved is that this is unconventional, by the way. Just doesn't mean just because one particular process or something doesn't work that this isn't real. But there's different ways to skin a cat, you know, through the contracts. You don't have to file a UCC, by the way. That was part of a process that's not required. There's something else that's even more powerful, or just as powerful, I heard. Other things, by the way, that study this type of information. Also, I want to mention that some of these gatekeepers don't mention, JP Morgan, this was a while back. This was actually reported on by some mainstream media outlets, not just independent news. But remember, JP Morgan had a cargo ship that was owned by a hedge fund that was caught with tons of drugs on board. That happened, I think, in Philadelphia, one of the states on the East Coast. You can look up the article, still should be online. Want to say that again, there was a hedge fund owned by JP Morgan Chase, which owned the ship that was caught with drugs on board. So you have to ask the question, when I mentioned about these data breaches earlier with Equifax, TransUnion, Experian, also Wells Fargo Bank caught using people's social security numbers behind the scenes, you have to ask the question, why don't these gatekeepers address that when they just try to focus solely on the so-called SCs, the sovereign citizens, by the way, but they don't focus on public side, statutory people and corporations using, abusing their power, their privilege, hurting people tremendously, by the way. Just something to think about. Also, it was said years ago, JP Morgan purchased a patent for an anonymous currency, by the way. You still might be able to find that information online. Very interesting. It was also stated that JP Morgan Chase is buying large amounts of silver and gold and cryptocurrency behind the scenes. Now, I don't have any articles on that per se, so I'm going to say, you know, this is just what I've heard. I was told this, but I did see some people on YouTube, some economists mention that, by the way. Just something to keep in mind. But it was actually reported on in the news about that cargo ship. And then that patent that they purchased, anonymous patent years ago, that was reported on too. I want to assure you before I shut things down, this information that I'm going over is accurate. So in the court system, they also use the legal judicial system, what's called legalese, by the way. This is a specialized language of the legal profession that is used to replace plain talk. Used to replace plain English. So like the word understand, for example, has a completely different meaning in the legal system, legally. But that's why I don't call it the currency that we carry money. Legally, it's a Federal Reserve note. Federal Reserve, it's copywritten because it's owned by the Federal Reserve. So understand there's a difference legally. So when I go over this information earlier to reiterate before I shut things down, guys, is the reason some people are more advanced when it comes to this information. Some people have had a background in the legal profession. If you've had a background owning a business, I've never owned a business before. So that's why some people struggle with learning and maybe more advanced in certain areas or more proficient, by the way, to kind of provide clarification. Some people have a background in finance, accounting, by the way, that helps as well. There's certain college class called Business and the Law that I was getting ready to take down the road, even though I was a business major. That was a requirement for certain majors. You have classes that are electives, but that class goes over some of this type of information, by the way. So, you know, getting ready to shut things down. I've already gone 42 minutes in. I do want to thank you guys for watching, taking the time, those who are still subscribed to me. If you like the work that I do, don't be afraid. Give me a thumbs up. You can hit the notification bell to subscribe to Dorsey's Resource. So whenever I put out new videos, you will receive an update in the upper right-hand corner of YouTube, by the way. I want to thank you guys for watching. You can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource. I'm on Twitter at Dorsey's Resource, and obviously on YouTube at Dorsey's Resource. I'm also on minds.com, by the way. I also recommend let's work on getting on other platforms. And down the road, just to give you guys a heads up, if you guys are aware of some other platforms that are gaining momentum or building to a level that YouTube is on, that you would even recommend that I should get on as an alternate, just in case my channel gets shut down or something happens, because you never know, because with all the censorship, by the way. But my material is G-rated, PG-13 at the most. It's very rare that I've used profanity, by the way. So, and I don't show nudity, you know, and things of that sort in my videos, just to let you guys know. So my content is clean for the most part, but just in case, guys, download my videos and share them, by the way, and with other YouTubers who are advanced, who you fear that their channel, or if it's something important that they are going over, just to give you guys a heads up. You may want to do that as soon as possible. find the software out there. They can't stop, you know, the ideas. They can try to kill a whole channel, but real legends never die. Big shout out to Currency 365, by the way. Subscribe to his channel. Big shout out to the work that Money Boy Films and Midwest are doing. Subscribe to their channel as well. Money Boy in Midwest and Currency 365. Also, Ross. Big shout out to the work he was doing. If he decides to come back, you have a fellow ally. I wouldn't be afraid. I will share. Let my subscribers know to subscribe to you. Come on back, Eugene. We need you. Appreciate your info that you shared with the work you were doing. You were putting in work, and I can validate that information you were going over was credible. That SS5, the passport stuff, and there's some other heavy hitters out there. I don't want to say the names. And they may be aware of this particular gatekeeper and some of these others that are claiming this stuff is a scam. But I'm here to say there's a legitimate side. This stuff is real. I've got documents to validate this, by the way. So I'm your host, John Dorsey, at Dorsey's Resource. Once again, you guys can follow me on Facebook at Dorsey's Resource, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm also on Minds.com, by the way. You know, as in the words of Nipsey Hussle, the marathon continues. We're going to continue to bang on the beast, by the way. And I appreciate you guys. Until next time, I'm your host, John Dorsey. Thank you for joining. Take care. Stay woke.